Hello, and welcome to this presentation on strategies to measure and assess wellbeing in correctional centres. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting has been held on the traditional lands of the Wellbeing people of the Yuin Nation on Wellbeing country, and I pay my respect to the elders both past, present, and future. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which I am meeting today. In today's presentation, we're going to discuss the present-day challenges of correctional centres and prisoners, as well as two measurement tools to assess wellbeing in correctional centres. I'm going to then evaluate the effectiveness of those tools in correctional centres and then provide a short summary highlighting the measurement tool that I think is most appropriate for prisoners in correctional centres. Now, present-day challenges in correctional facilities. Prison rates are at an all-time high, and they have steadily been increasing by 35%. And so from 2019 to 2020, there was just an increase in 5%, but that is in the bigger scheme of things. There is no sign of them slowing down, and so this is a real issue that we must act on now. The rate of reoffending is one thing that is severely alarming within Australia, which is the rate of reoffending is 46%. And so the cost to Australian taxpayers for the running of these correctional facilities is just going to increase. From 2019 to 2020, the cost was $5.2 billion. Now, prisoners face a host of issues. On the left-hand side, I have listed some of those issues that prisoners face, and these are the issues that they face when they are in correctional facilities. And on the right-hand side, I have illustrated some of the positive psychology solutions that may best suit and serve to meet these challenges. Now, basically, it can all be summed up into the fact that we do need to teach prisoners how to meet basic needs in healthy and pro-social ways. So how are we going to do that? Let us explore now how to measure the wellbeing of prisoners with the Satisfaction with Life scale and the Adult Hope scale. But why did I choose these two tools? Well, firstly, hope correlates with self-esteem, positive emotion, and effective coping. And we can see that in the previous slide, that these are things that prisoners need to be taught, as well as academic achievement and physical health. Whereas subjective wellbeing involves having high positive effect and low negative effect. Let us now first look at the Satisfaction with Life scale, which was designed by Diner et al. In 1985. This scale provides insight into part of a person's subjective well-being. It measures a person's judgmental, the cognitive component of their subjective well-being. Now, the scale is broken down into 5 questions, and people are asked to rate each question on a scale of 1 to 7. So 1 is dissatisfied and 7 is extremely satisfied. And then at the end, they are asked to tally up their questions, their results, and then they have one whole score here. And as you can see, the questionnaire is very simple, it's very straightforward, and it only takes a minute to complete. And so the score at the end helps a person to see how satisfied they are with their life as a whole. And we have the extremely dissatisfied at one end, while we have the extremely satisfied at the top end. Now let us move on to how consistent and reliable and valid is this scale. Well, Pavitt and Diner 1993 inform us that the Cronbach's alphas estimates range from 7.9 to 8.9, whilst the reliability is also very good. It's a very reliable tool. Magnus et al. 1993 inform us that test and retest were 0.54 for the period of 4 years. As well, this scale works wonderfully with other tools. And in regards to its validity, does it measure what it intends to measure? Yes, it absolutely does. And it can be used in a broad range of populations. Okay, the strengths of this tool. So it only takes a minute to complete, and you can use it with a wide range of demographics. There's freedom for self-interpretation, and life satisfaction is linked with pro-social behaviour. So tick to meeting those needs that we initially explored at the beginning. The weaknesses, the individual components of a person's wellbeing is not measured. A person's judgments or mental health may affect how they complete this instrument. This is very important to take into consideration, considering that prisoners may be under the influence of drugs, or they may not be in a good frame of mind when they come to this assessment. It does not measure the affective component of wellbeing, and it also doesn't measure the eudaimonic wellbeing component either. Next, we turn to the Adult Hope Scale, which was developed by Snyder et al. In 1991. And this assessment highlights a person's cognitive understanding of hope. In total, there are 12 questions, so it's a little bit more complex than the former. And 8 of those questions measure the hope of the person, whereas 4 are detractors. And the tool itself focuses on the subjective understanding a person has to determine and achieve one's goals. This tool also spans time perspectives, which means it focuses on the past, present, and the future. And it has also been used, as the former has, in a correctional centre context. Now, these are the 12 questions. And again, these questions are very simple and very straightforward. And the participant is asked to use a rating system again, from 1, definitely false, to 8, definitely true, on each of these questions to determine their total score, of the total hope score. I wanted to briefly as well show this because I think this is very important, because each of the items can be broken down into subgroups. So we have the agency, the willpower, and the pathways, the way power, and then you have the total hope score. So I think this is very important to mention that the willpower looks at the person's mental capacity, and the way power is the resourcefulness and the motivation behind achieving that. Can they achieve their goals? And I think this is a really positive thing to this scale. But is it consistent? Is it reliable? And is it a valid scale? Well, it's not as widely used as the satisfaction with life scale. However, it is a really consistent and reliable and valid scale. The Cronbach's alphas with 0.71 to 0.76, and it has also good internal reliability. The overall scale alphas 0.74 to 0.88, the agency alphas 0.70 to 0.84, and the pathways alphas 0.63 to 0.86. And again, really good test and retest, 0.85 to 3 weeks to 0.82 in 10 weeks. And does it measure what it says it's going to measure? Yes, it absolutely does. And the items are structured into meaningful groups, which I think is so important. Okay, let's look at the strengths and the weaknesses. The strengths, yes, it's a very short tool, and that is definitely a strength. It only takes a couple minutes. It can be used with both male and female prisoners, and you also can distinguish the pathways as well as the agency. The weaknesses, it measures a very specific demographic. It measures a very specific, definite area of a person's life, the understanding of their life. And again, it may be affected by other factors such as drug use or their mental state of mind at the time. And a big weakness to this is the fact that it's been largely used with students. And so prisoners would have a very different understanding of and needs towards well-being. Now let us bring it all together. Wow, the satisfaction with life scale overall is a really good, valid tool. It's been used widely with a number of populations and a number of settings. Particularly, it has been used in correctional settings before, as well as with juveniles aged 13 to 18 in youth educational centres in Poland. And I think that is a real positive for it. Now, the instrument, it doesn't measure emotions and frequency and intensity, so this could be a negative. Prisoners may have memory errors when it comes to perceiving their life circumstances, particularly because of their mood at the time, and it does measure a limited scope of well-being. The Adult Hope Scale, on the other hand, measures agency and pathways, and it does inform us on the emotions of prisoners. It lets us it also develops the self-esteem and the self-image of prisoners. And it also has, and also hope is related to better outcomes across a range of disciplines. So it has a lot of positives to it. It is not as widely used as the satisfaction with life scale, and it does take slightly longer to complete. However, it is the scale of choice that I would recommend because of the pathways and the agency. It just offers a little bit more, I think, to what prisoners are needing in correctional facilities, and it does tick a lot of those initial boxes. So it is the one of choice today. Now, I want to conclude with some recommendations. Firstly, satisfaction with life and hope are intricately linked. You may be choosing the one and the other. Further research is needed into the scale, into the populations of prisons, and further research should be done into the scores of agency and pathways with prisoners. Thank you.